welcome back to This Takes the Cake. We're super excited. We have Michelle, our one and only from Dallas, Texas, and we're super excited to talk to you. Michelle is the owner of Stunning and Brilliant Events in Texas, and we'll just jump right into it. Share how you got started with Stunning and Brilliant.
Yeah, so actually, I went to high school with our Chicago owner, Lauren.
Woo
So
woo!
I was like going through Facebook, and at that time, I was working a remote job in marketing, and it was like in the middle of COVID, and I was like, I'm kind of over this. I just don't know what I want to do next. So I had seen photos, like Lauren was coming up on my feed, and I reached out to her, and she was listed as the owner of Stunning and Brilliant Events in Chicago. So I was like, "Hey, I just love to chat here about how you started your business and all that." And that's how I learned from her that she had actually franchised, and I learned a little bit more about the company. She's like, "Let me introduce you to Sarah." So I think that was like in a matter of a few weeks, we had gotten together, chatted, and I told my husband, and I tear up when I talk. Like wedding day. I mean, I cry when you walk down the aisle. I'll cry when you put on your dress. It's like this moment to me. I remember going up to my husband and thinking, I can actually do what I love. Like
Aw.
in that moment, it meant a lot to me. So okay, let me get over that. So,
I
anyways,
love it. That's
um,
awesome. I love that. So it's
so
been what, 2.5 years, I think. I literally, as soon as we talked, I like fell in love with you and I hopped on a plane and I came to Dallas, Texas.
yeah.
And
Oh gosh,
oh my gosh,
you asked me that question, then geez.
I
um,
love it.
so so yeah, you came to Dallas, and I remember I met you. You came to my front door, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I love Sarah."
And I remember at the hotel,
And
I don't remember the hotel I stayed at, but you had dropped off a gift earlier in the day, and it was super sweet. It was a Texas mug and a little note and some type of sweets or goodies or something. Do you remember what they were?
I don't remember what they were. But I have a sweet tooth,
Yeah,
so
it was something
I give
sweet.
out a lot of cookies, chocolates, and
Uh,
yeah, that's my thing.
that's awesome. Cool. Well, we're excited to talk all things, obviously, things in Texas, obviously. But what are some popular like trends that are going on in the Dallas Fort Worth area right now?
Oh gosh, so we do a lot of family style. I do a lot of family style and buffet here.
Okay.
So like that's one service style that
That is
is
definitely
very
different.
popular
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I grew up in Chicago, and in Chicago, like I felt like every time I went to a wedding, and I don't know what it is like now, I can ask Lauren, but plated
Plated.
style,
Yeah.
and then we
Plated.
come here, and everything was family style. So I love that.
Everything's bigger in
Dinner,
Texas, right?
everything is bigger. Bands are popular. Outdoor cocktail hour. I mean, we have beautiful weather all year long. Like this past weekend, we had outside cocktail hour. I had a wedding, it was like 78 degrees. And then the next day, like Texas, was like 46 degrees. So
Right.
we do take advantage of the weather outside. Um, line dancing, I've seen line dancing. I mean,
I love it.
everything's bigger here.
Right? What months are most popular there in Texas? Like when is wedding season?
So October through December.
Okay.
This past weekend, I had 3 weddings, so I'm, like, wiped out right now.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and
That's
then, I
crazy.
think last October, I had 8 weddings. I mean, definitely once the weather cools down, people wanna take advantage of that.
Right? No, that's awesome. All right. So on this episode, we're going to talk about wedding etiquette, what to wear, what are the RSVP rules, what are the plus ones, all these questions that we get asked all the time for our clients. So we're gonna dive right on in because a lot of people probably don't even know these things sometimes when they're attending as a guest as well. So the dress code, we know that white. Obviously, there's some other colors that you shouldn't be wearing at weddings. Let's kind of talk through that.
Yeah. So white is a big one, and I see that pretty often. I mean, I think every wedding I did in December, November, and I think October, somebody wore white. So I did a few. So first, Asian weddings.
Right?
Um, there's always folks that wear white, and I think it's a cultural thing. Like they don't know in America the bride wears white.
Right?
So that's one. But then I don't know why people choose to wear white when they know the I honestly don't know other than like cultural
Yeah, they just
traditions and
don't
all
know.
that.
Yeah, no, totally. All right, so what goes into the attire? So, like, if you get an invitation, it says black tie or black tie optional, cocktail attire. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so cocktail attire, I always say like a cute cocktail dress for ladies, guys, a tie, a suit, jacket, black tie. Um, tuxedo is not required.
Right,
That's what I say with the guys, and a dark color, preferably black. Women, long gown or a elevated cocktail dress.
right. I love it. I
And I like
love.
to throw in that pantsuit too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I always love at weddings, like when the guests are arriving, it's like I always tell them it's like a fashion show because
Oh
I
yes.
love obviously clothes and dressing and all those things. So I always love looking at all the different dresses. And definitely as a guest, like you can take inspo from the invitation if you'd like, because that is like
Yep.
the first taste of the wedding, that the guests get. So we obviously don't wear like the same print as like the envelope liner or something, but you could definitely take
Yeah.
some inspo if it's blues and greens, when you wanted to do a navy, fun cocktail dress or something fun.
So I had a wedding recently where I had guests wear the same color as the bridesmaids.
Ooh,
And honestly, it was almost the same. So love and hate it. But in this instance, I got them very confused with the
oh
bridesmaids. And there were
gosh.
several times where they were walking because it was the same material, same style.
Oh wow.
And I accidentally thought that they were bridesmaids. I would say like if you're close to the wedding party, maybe ask what color the bridesmaids are wearing and try not to wear the same color. Um,
No, that is true. I
yeah,
just recently went to a wedding and I asked the bride what color the bridesmaid dresses were because I didn't want to wear the same color. So
yeah,
but I do love when the guests, like on the invitation, the client or the bride, the couple will ask for the guests to all wear the same color. And just for
yeah.
photos, it looks really cool. So I know we've done one recently where all the guests wore black, and it just looked really good for the photos. So
Yeah, it looks really elegant.
no, absolutely. Okay, so I know we've all seen the guests that wore something that you're like, what were you thinking? So definitely keep
I would,
that in mind when you're on the dance floor getting down. You know what I mean? What have you
yeah.
seen?
So I actually saw leopard print leggings the other day. Like
Oh,
I was so confused. I thought this was like a vendor dropping off something. Sometimes, vendors are all over the place with their outfits.
right.
But this was a guest who wore leopard print leggings with like a nice blouse, and it was kind of loud. So I think like stay away from loud patterns or colors or like
Agree.
large
Leopard,
sequins.
leopard. And
It
they
was
were like
interesting. And I do
leggings.
like leopard,
Yeah, no, no, no. But they
but
were,
not leggings at a wedding.
yeah, no leggings at a wedding for sure. Especially one that Stunning and Brilliant's doing for sure. Too funny. All right, so let's talk invitations. So pay attention to the RSVP deadlines. Let's talk about why this is so important.
Oh, yes. So I like to recommend around 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks out RSVP day. And it really depends on when is catering their final numbers due, when are the final numbers due for bar. And you don't want to do your RSVP date too close to the wedding date because then you get that final invoice and then everyone starts freaking out about like how much money they're pumping out in the last few weeks of their wedding.
Right?
So 4 to 6 weeks out, so you have ample time to figure out the final invoices, prepare final layouts, final quantity
Seating
for rentals.
chart, all of those other things that go into place with that. So there's always a few, obviously that things come up, but it's definitely super important. So every time I ever get one in the mail, I just immediately do it and send it back. That way it's said
Yeah.
and done. So
Okay, but can we talk about when brides decide to do their RSVP date earlier, so like 2 or 3 months out. I've had brides ask me
Yeah.
that, and I get it because they wanna know sooner rather than later, but I feel like folks forget to RSVP maybe and then
Or
or
they're not
don't
really
RSVP.
sure. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
Or even with like save the dates. When people send them out a year or over a year, I recently just went to a wedding and she'd sent them out over a year in advance and like I couldn't even find any and then the invitation was so early
yeah,
too. I was like and then like googling to find her website. So, no,
yeah,
agree. Agree. I always tell people, I mean, everybody has lives. Everybody knows they're not all wedding planners and know what they're doing for the next 2 years, you know? So I love it. All right. So let's talk. This is probably a huge thing that people talk about the no kid rule. Why is this important?
yeah. So my thing with kids is if you are allowing kids, there needs to be someone who watches them and is
Yeah,
responsible for them. Like,
absolutely.
don't have kids. If somebody's bringing their kid to their wedding, you got to watch them because they could run off. Like, we have weddings out here in the middle of nowhere. We have weddings with like next to a river. Like, there's candles being lit. Like, let's be smart about our kids running around.
Right.
So at least have someone watch them. They just need to be responsible for them. The ones that are problems are the ones that don't watch their kids and then lose them and they're knocking over the cake. And
Mm-hmm.
I've oh my gosh, I've seen kids run around the cake table and the amount of stress that like is on my face that I can't hide is
Oh, I've had
like
them get
wild.
under the cake table.
Oh, I would not allow that. I no, I've had my coordinator, I'm like, "You gotta stand by the cake. You're guarding the cake table now. That is your
Right.
job for cocktail hour."
You know, and we definitely have couples that they don't want any kids at a wedding, you know,
Yeah,
and they always struggle with, well, how do we tell people? And I'm like, that's kind of a conversation you really just have to have with them directly, especially if they're close. Can't really necessarily put it on the invitation, but you can put it on the website. But if for some reason they can't, like you said, you could offer some type of babysitting service on site, you know, depending on their
yeah.
age and stuff like that. Okay, this is a huge one. Plus ones. So your invite will tell you. And why is this important?
Yeah, so, there's the seating chart is done, like, if we have folks, like, walking up with a plus one, I mean, brides and grooms are spending time planning out their wedding, their seating chart, meal counts, all that. Um, don't bring a plus one if you don't have one on your invite.
So there was actually a wedding that I was invited to, and I didn't get a plus one. And as a guest, I mean, who wants to go to an event by themselves? So I actually didn't go to the wedding, right? I mean, I know,
Interesting.
right? I mean, and especially if you don't know the people that well, I always think, in my eyes, I think you should always be allowed a plus one at a certain age. I'm not saying like a 16-year-old can bring their boyfriend or girlfriend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. When couples ask me, like, oh, who gets a plus one? I usually say, well, if they're married, obviously plus one. If they
Right?
have a ring on their finger and they're engaged, they should be
Of course.
invited. I think if, and then when it comes to like dating, if it's like long term, they've been dating for years, I say,
Of course.
great. If it's a family member and like the bride's brother just started dating someone a month ago, I'm going to say,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably not
Yeah.
because, or I ask, are you okay with the girlfriend being in family photos?
Exactly. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a good point. No, for sure. Yeah. So definitely, when you get your invitation, pay attention to that because it will have your name and guest, or it'll just have your name. All right. Let's talk more etiquette. Tipping vendors. Which vendors do you tip, and what's an appropriate tip amount to give, obviously, to your vendors? I think I get asked that question a lot.
I do too. And we have a tip sheet that we have given to our brides and grooms. And anytime I send that out, like for us, it's second nature. We know who to tip. We're a
Right.
vendor too. Like we know which vendors to tip. But I forget that couples don't know who to tip. It's not like second nature to them. So I say catering, bar, entertainment. So your DJ, your band.
Right.
We
Anybody in the
have
service industry.
exactly
Yep.
valet.
Hair and
The venue
makeup. Yeah.
coordinator, I think, goes forgotten sometimes, but there are some venues where the venue coordinator is doing a lot. Like um, sometimes I'll act as a bridal attendant. I work at one venue where they actually include a bridal attendant. So I'm saying, that's a service. We should tip them.
Right.
Vendors that sometimes get tipped, and I think it's really nice when the couples do tip them. Cake delivery.
Right.
It takes a lot to deliver a cake. It's not like they
Yes, it
just throw
is.
it in their van and drop it off. Like, they're very careful with your cake. They wanna make it look great on the wedding day. They come, they touch it up, they add the flowers. So cake delivery, florist, if you've really had a great relationship with them and they've done wonderful work, and then stationery as well, I think is a good one to tip.
Yeah, of course. And anybody you think that went above and beyond, because a lot of times,
Yeah.
you've created a relationship with these couples and you've worked with them a year or over a year, so it's definitely a nice touch for sure. So let's talk gift and registry. Do people still bring gifts to weddings, or should that be left for a bridal shower or sent directly to the couple?
So I say gifts should be sent to the couple and should not be brought to the wedding. Cards can be brought to the wedding, but gifts, let's not bring them to the wedding.
Right. Yeah, and I
What do
mean,
you think?
no, I agree. It's very rare you get like boxed gifts at a wedding.
Yes.
And as a guest, like dressed up in your dress and your heels and all that good stuff, you really don't want to be toting a big crock pot that you bought for them. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely ship
But
it
I
to the
always find
couple.
I always find it's like the grandma that's
Oh,
brought the crock
yes.
pot
Oh,
or the
yeah.
toaster.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this grandmother walking up with a box, and I'm like, oh, let me take that off your hands. That's so
Right.
sweet. Thank you.
Right. And we always have a designated place, whether it's a cute little card basket or some type of box, for the cards, because a lot of people do bring cards for the wedding, which is totally fun. Yeah, I would say, I mean, we don't get a ton of box gifts at weddings.
No, I maybe get one or two at each wedding. Um, I've had people bring one wedding this summer,
Gosh,
someone brought a drill gun and it wasn't even wrapped. It
that's
was
too,
like a used one. So it must have been an inside joke,
oh my God,
but
I
that
hope
was an
so.
odd thing to see on the gift
Oh my
table.
God, too funny. I guess a lot of questions, obviously, couples ask us as well is where do they register and where do they put that on the invite, the website, all of those things.
Okay. So registry, do not put it on the invitation.
Correct. Did y'all
That should
hear
be
that?
reserved for, yep, that should be reserved for the wedding website. That's where you put links to your registry and have it ready. I think once you have your wedding website up and definitely have the registry ready before your bridal shower if you're going to have a bridal shower. And when you send out the invite, so that when folks get your invite, they see your wedding website, and they can see your registry there. But don't print any of
Don't
the
print it.
information on your
Yep,
invitation.
exactly. And I think a lot of people don't know that. It's like, hey, come to my wedding and buy me a gift.
Yeah.
So no, agree to that. And a lot of, I guess another big question people always ask me is, how much should I spend on a gift, for a wedding? And it ranges. They always say, and this is what I've always heard as well, and you definitely chime in, pretty much to cover your cost of your food and bar for that person. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it also depends what type of wedding because some
yeah,
weddings are smaller.
of
I
course.
have couples who have spent $25,000 on their wedding, and then other couples who spend over 100,000. So
Right? Yeah.
it definitely it varies, but yeah, definitely to cover the cost of, you attending the wedding.
Right. No, agree. Agree. Okay. So, ceremony. How soon before the ceremony are guests expected to arrive? This is probably one of my pet peeves, but tell me when they should arrive.
Not 2 hours early.
Thank you. I'm like, hey, did you know the ceremony starts at 5, not 3?
Yeah. So, we have prelude music starting around 20 minutes out, 30 minutes on the earlier side, but usually about 20 minutes out. So, when guests ask when they should arrive, we'll say music will be playing, you have ample time to find your seats if you arrive 20 minutes beforehand.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
No, agree. Anywhere from that. 30, 20, 15 prior for sure.
Yeah.
I went to a wedding recently and we got there early, but we just sat in the car until it was about 22 because I didn't want to be sitting, at the ceremony for 30 minutes and then have to sit another 30 minutes. So,
Yeah. But I had a wedding recently, and this happens a few times where guests come maybe an hour early, hour and a half early, and they're not a part of like the family portraits if
photos
we
or,
do that before a
yeah,
ceremony. So one like as a planner, I'm like, okay, I want to attend to them and find them a seat, but at the same time, we're still setting up and I don't want them seeing the ballroom, the reception room. So
or the
yeah,
bride or the
don't
groom or the couple,
ex and we're
right?
still taking care of bridal party portraits, so I'm trying to hide the bride from them and all that. So yeah, don't arrive an hour, hour and a half early.
Right. Or I love the guests. They come in, they're like, oh, I'm going to find my seat and I'm going to put my stuff down. I'm like, no,
Oh, yeah.
we haven't taken detailed photos yet. Yeah.
Okay, how do you word that to the couple though? Because they don't understand what detail photos are, but I'm like,
I
"We're
always just
we're
blame it on the
still setting up
photographer.
here."
Yeah, I always blame it on the photographer. Photographer still needs to get detailed photos with no personal items in the room. If you could just mind, after the ceremony, you're more than welcome to come in. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. What about phones at the ceremony? How do you feel about those?
Um, it's it happens,
Yeah,
like,
it's
even
just a
if
thing.
the officiant says it's an unplugged announcement, you can put the biggest sign up in the world in front of ceremony, people are still gonna take their phone out.
Or their
Um,
iPad. I've seen it all.
oh, yes, the iPad. I have had like, family members who are photographers
Oh, yeah.
who
They
bring
have
their
their
own
real camera.
cameras.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get
Um,
it.
but yeah,
Um,
no cell phones, like, you're there to watch and be a part of this moment with the bride and groom, like, enjoy
enjoy
it.
it.
You can see the professional photos afterwards, they'll be shared.
Absolutely. No, for sure. All right. Rules and advice of where the family should sit at the ceremony. Bride's side, groom's
So
side. You want to talk about that?
so traditionally, if you're looking at the altar, bride side on the left, groom side on the right. I've also done the other way because
Same.
have you done this
Yeah. Oh,
where
yeah. It tricks me
like
up
the
every
family
time. Yeah.
the rehearsal, like I kept tripping up and saying the wrong thing and I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. We can totally, we
I
can make it
know.
work."
Yep. No, I've done it.
Um, but the reason is because they want to see like the bride. So the bride is
The mom wants to
on the
see the
left and then
daughters.
the
Yeah.
mom is on the right so they can see their face.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know how I feel about that, but we have some couples do that.
Yeah, no, I've done definitely a handful for sure. And a lot of times they're like bride on the left, groom on the right, for seating, but sometimes it's just not even. So like the first few guests that
Yeah.
come in, they can do it, but then I'm like, okay, we got to even this out for the photographer. We got nobody on the right side and everybody on the left side. So, um,
Yeah.
and if you're a guest at a wedding, normally the first 2 rows, 3 rows are for family. So if you haven't been asked to sit at those, don't sit on those rows.
I always recommend family reserved signs for the seats.
Absolutely.
And that way it's clear. So if a guest starts walking up to the first row, they're like, oh, this is reserved for family. And during rehearsal, I always let family members know, hey, if you have anyone who you want to assign seating in the family rows, please let them know before ceremony. So when they arrive, they know where they're sitting.
Absolutely. And even if you wanted us to put out little name cards or anything, we're happy to do that
Yeah.
because I don't know who Aunt Betty or Uncle John is, when they're getting there. So I have a crazy story. So this was probably like 8 years ago and had everybody lined up. First row was still empty. So that was for moms and grandmas. And so there was a stepmom involved and she was sitting on the second row. Well, she walks down the aisle and she sits in mom's seat. So I'm with the bride and dad, and I can see this, but they don't really know what's happening. So I had a radio, and I was like, whoever was with me, I radioed them to come to the bride and dad. And I had to go to the front row to get this lady to move, and she wouldn't move. She's like, I'm sitting here. And I'm like, oh, no. Anyways, it was another family member that helped get her moved to the second row. But could you imagine? So Actually, it was mom and dad walking the bride down. Could you imagine once they got to the end of the row and she was sitting there?
Oh no.
That's why you hire a planner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
that
take care
was
of that for you guys.
yeah, that was
We'll manage it.
yeah, that was a little crazy. Okay, so after the ceremony, obviously reception, follow the seating chart. It was chosen for an intention. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So anytime like cocktail hours over and guests start sitting down, I always have my team kind of hang out in the reception room because inevitably somebody will be like, well, I'm not supposed to be sitting here. And I'm
Mhm.
like thinking in my head, I'm like, how do you know you're not supposed to be sitting there? Because the bride and groom chose your seats.
Right?
And they want to sit somewhere else and somebody wants to move. Um, I show them to their seat, and then, I don't even say anything afterwards. I'm like, "This is your seat here."
Right? Totally. Okay, I have a crazy story, another one. So this wedding's probably been 4 or 5 years ago, and obviously we don't do the seating chart as the planners. Obviously, like
Yeah.
we might help make it or whatever, but we don't say who sits where because we don't know anybody. And it was about 150 people, and I'll never forget this. And she was in the far right hand corner. It was grandma. And so, make a long story short, hindsight, I didn't know this, but at the wedding, she's like, "Why am I in the corner?" And I was like, "Oh, they probably didn't want you by the band or the music. You know, it's a great seat. You know, once dinner's over, you just be sitting there for a good 30 minutes. You know, you can definitely come over to the lounge by the dance floor, all the above." She was just, angry grandma. So, hindsight, a year later, I'm working a bridal expo at the convention center, and the same lady comes up to me. "You are the lady that put me in the corner." And I'm like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah." And I don't remember the bride's name at this time. And she was like, "Yeah, so and so told me you made the seating chart and you put me in the corner." I was like, "Oh my God, how dare that bride do that to me?"
The bride did that to her?
Yeah, the bride blamed it on me. So the bride actually told the grandma that it was our fault and we made the seating chart and that's why she was in the corner.
Can you imagine for that full year, this grandma just totally hates you
Yeah.
because of what you
Uh,
did?
So I ended up getting her information after the expo and I sent her flowers. But it wasn't even my fault.
Oh, that was sweet.
But I guess the bride kept peace with the family. That's okay. Sometimes we'll take blame for things. I'm like, "Oh, just tell whoever that was the planner's, decision."
Yeah.
Okay, at what point is it acceptable to leave a wedding if you aren't staying for the exit?
I've had couples leave right after dinner. Like,
Right?
it was dinner and then they left even before tables were bussed. I think that's a little too early.
Yeah.
I'd say wait till all the formalities are done. There's parent dances, first dance, toast.
Toast, cake
I
cutting.
think exactly. I
Yeah.
think right when the dance floor opens, if that's not your thing, then I think you can head out. But wait till all the formalities are done. You want to hear the toast to the bride and groom. You want to see the dances.
No, I agree for sure. Yeah, and because once dancing gets going, I mean, it's still like a good 2 hours of dancing. So maybe you're driving back, or maybe you have plans to get a flight the next morning. But yeah, I definitely think at least 4 hours. So let's just say the ceremony
Yeah.
was at 4 and you stayed till like 8. I think that's totally fair. And I mean, my goodness, you've bought a gift, you've came all the way to the wedding. You've probably bought a new outfit. Like, at least to stay and enjoy. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk bridal party. So, what should the couple pay for versus what is the responsibility of the bridal party? Because it's a big responsibility.
Okay, so when you're asking someone to stand up in a wedding, they do have to pay for, they do, it costs a lot of money. So one thing that brides ask me, hair and makeup. I say this is optional. I don't
Yeah.
think the bride has to pay for hair and makeup. It is a lot of money. Um, and usually I tell the bride, I'm like, you don't have to be the bearer of bad news if you're not going to cover costs. I usually say, like, let's assign that to the maid of honor, and
Right.
the maid of
Yeah.
honor can let the bridesmaids know how much hair and makeup is and whether or not they want to move forward, and she can gather that information. Dresses, I think if you're
Yeah.
going to be, I don't know, I'm like, I think it's nice if the bride pays for the dress, but I think that's optional too. But
Right.
don't ask your bridesmaids to wear like an $800 dress.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to keep it affordable. Because, I mean, to be a bridesmaid, I mean, let's just talk through, a dress, 250, 300, maybe you have alterations. You've got
Yep.
shoes, you've got earrings. Obviously, you got to give them a gift. You got to get hair and makeup. You got to go to the engagement party. You got to go to the bachelor, bachelorette parties. I mean, you're always a few grand in.
And travel, I mean,
Oh yeah, travel.
not everyone's
Forgot
going to
we got to
be
get
living in
there.
the same
Yeah.
hotel,
Mhm.
airfare, and then all that travel for all those different events, bachelorette party, rehearsal, dinner, engagement party, and all that too. So yeah, it definitely adds up.
Yeah, I know for sure. So yeah, if you're a bridesmaid or groomsman that's going to be in a wedding, plan for lots of money.
Save up.
All right. Any stories that take the cake of a rude wedding guest? AKA showing up
Rude.
late,
Yeah.
wearing something crazy. I mean, I know I've had rude wedding guests. I don't know if I can think of like an exact moment, but I've definitely been people like, whoa, Aunt Betty was not nice. Or I've had even clients, say
Yeah.
beforehand, just ignore her. She's not very nice. I'm sure you've had the same thing too, right?
Yes, I've been told like, "Oh, hey, grandpa's not very nice." But my thing going into it, if I'm like ready to meet them, I'm like, "Okay, Michelle, just kill them with kindness."
Right? Yeah. Kill them with kindness.
And it works. And they go up to me and they're like, "You're the sweetest." And I'm like, really had to hold it in there, but yes,
So,
thank
my
you.
southern hospitality, no, for sure. Gosh, yeah, I've had people kind of complain about what's happening, and a lot of times I'll just be like, "Oh, the couple's request," and then they actually feel bad. They have to feel bad because I'm like, "Well, this is
Yeah.
what the couple," we say it nicely, this is what the couple wanted, and they're like, "Oh, that's just dumb," or whatever. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
anytime or I've had mothers, like, hijack, like, the DJ playlist, like,
Oh
for
gosh.
first dance or grand introductions, and I had a mom do this recently, and she had a mariachi band come in, and they came late, and so she's like, "Hey, I really want them to play the first dance in the grand introduction," and literally, DJ is announcing the newlyweds to come in, and I, like, ran up to her because I saw her talking to the mariachi band, and I was like, no, I'm like, "Oh, you know what? We have a bride and groom have curated a playlist, and we absolutely cannot have the mariachi band playing." Can you imagine what would have happened if the DJ was playing his song and then the mariachi band starts playing at the same time?
Not at all.
Um,
Not at all.
Not that that was rude, she just really wanted them to play, but,
Yeah.
just killing people with kindness.
I know, right? Yeah,
And
I've
saying, "Oh,
definitely had
this is
things
the
like
bride and
that
groom."
pop up. Yeah, there was recently one, and I didn't know the bride was mad till afterwards. She just kind of played it along. But it was this past fall, and the nephew came out in his Spider Man costume, and they played the Spider Man song.
Wait, was this planned?
No, the mother of the bride let
Oh,
it happen, and like she came to me,
oh,
and she's like, "I paid for
yes.
this wedding. This is happening." So I was like, "Okay."
Oh. Yeah, that's my favorite. I've had
I know. What do you
okay,
say to
now
that?
now I can start thinking of all
Is
these
it
weird things.
something coming together? Let's hear it. Mm.
I've had a mother of the groom, and this was a month of coordination. So I didn't have a lot of interaction with the mother of groom beforehand. Um, but she went up to me, I think I was like 10 minutes into arriving, and she was upset about something, and I don't know what happened. And she comes down the hallway waving her finger at me, and she's like, "I paid for half of you. So,
I paid for
you know,
half of you. Oh my god, I'm so dead.
as Sarah, I did not know what to say in that moment because no one has I've never heard that before,
I never heard that either.
like, I had just arrived, like, I had put my emergency kit down, and she was visibly upset too, so, like, I felt bad, and I was trying to find my tissues, and I was, like, very, like, caught off guard in that moment, um, but that was interesting.
That's too funny. You should have said that half was paid the last few months. This is the
I know, I
Oh
was
my
like,
god. That is
so physically half of me?
Oh my god, too funny, too funny. Anything else etiquette that we'd want to offer our listeners? or anything else people ask you? I mean, I think we pretty much covered reception, ceremony, bridal party, invitations, gifts, dress code. I think we covered it all.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys, for listening to This Takes the Cake. We're excited to have Michelle. Michelle, tell them how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so I'm located in Dallas and Fort Worth. So visit our website. We've got a link on there to our Dallas Fort Worth office. Email me, text me. We're on website, Instagram. Yeah.
Right? Yep. Under. Cool. Well, it was awesome to talk with you and talk all things wedding etiquette. Until next time.